So, going into this week's video, you think it'll be a normal episode reaction, right? Like a 10-minute discussion about Yu-Gi-Oh! Nonsense, right? Well, a major bombshell dropped this morning, and I feel it must be addressed here. Why? I don't know. I just kind of want to. Also, I will be away from like Thursday to Monday, so there's kind of no time for me to really get all my thoughts together to do a big video on this topic. So we're just going to kind of combine it with this, especially considering there's not really a ton definitive to talk about. So yeah, the structure of today's video is we're going to spend like half of it talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush, and then we'll essentially just move into a really big, long-ass TCG question of the week. So yeah, without further ado, Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush episode 21. In general, not a ton happened anyways, so maybe this kind of works out. But essentially, the episode picks up where we left off, with our heroes basically just being dragged out of the arena because without dual power, the gravity just sort of like brings them to the ground and they can't really move, which if gravity actually did that to you, I think would start causing organs to rupture. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Expects us to go with crazier. But yeah, so they get taken out of the Coliseum, where Manabu and Manabu's boss tell them that this area has like really strange gravity Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic nonsense going on. And so therefore, they say it's a coincidence that that's why they built this thing here. I have this weird gut feeling it's going to turn out it's not. I feel like they're subtly setting up that the MIB are, or whatever you want to call them, or whatever the fuck they're called, I don't know, are potentially our bad guys. I kind of have a feeling that's where this is going. But yeah, so essentially this place has a really weird gravity, and they just built this like alien civilization here, where presumably the aliens would have lived fucking miserable lives because they can barely move because of the gravity, had it not been for, what are they called, the Ronavins or whatever, this crime syndicate or something going on in this area, which created the dual power system in the form of the bottle caps somehow, which allows for people, so long as they have enough dual power, to function normally and walk around and exist and essentially make their lives better, which the MLB seem to not like, which if you kind of follow seems to be where this is going, so we'll see where that ends up heading. But yeah, no, so then naturally our heroes get taken out. You also learn there's a ring that's for MLB members only. That'll probably come up eventually. But yeah, no, so they get kicked out of the place. They go home where they get scolded for being told, see, we told you it was dangerous. I mean, nothing bad really happened to you guys, to the characters. All that really happened was that they just lost the duel and had a minorly inconvenienced, annoying ride home. Like, that's kind of all that happened. But yeah, no, so then naturally the gang try to figure out what to do next, i.e. they got to figure out what the deal is with this Ronavin group and figure out how it relates to our Yuna girl, as well as figuring out how this fits in with London. All of which seems very interesting, but then the episode kind of goes at the pace you expect. Essentially, you have Udius, who is kind of lost in thought and really, like, disappointed and mad at himself for losing his dual disc, considering we learned how much important it is. But kind of like a problem I've had with a lot of the Udius stuff is we then don't really spend any time with Udius as he kind of goes through the defeat or that feeling of failure, or maybe that he let the person who gave him the dual disc, presumably Yuma. Fuck! I hate the U naming thing! I fucking hate it! I have hated it in every Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. The only time it worked was when you called Jaden Yuki or Yuki Judai or whatever the fuck, when you made the U the last name so I didn't have to hear it. And someone, I think last week, was all like, well, all the other Gohas were named U, so they have to be. Very fair point. You are 100% correct. I am not mad at you. But I fucking hate all the U names. It's stupid. I don't like it. I can't even tell these motherfuckers apart anymore. But yeah, you get my point. For me, like, I would kind of like it if more of this show, clearly talking about refugees and a bit of an immigrant story, was told a little more from the perspective of our refugees slash immigrants. And you can make the argument in Sevens, Yuga a lot of times would kind of take a backseat so the other three main characters could have their moments. But I always felt like Yuga was still the prime focus and what was moving the story forward. Whereas here, I kind of feel like the focus is a little too divided between Udius Uamu and Yuhi, and I wonder if maybe that's why our three main characters have the U name, is they want this concept of like maybe three protagonists, but there's a reason that doesn't work. Hence Star Wars The Phantom Menace. But yeah, no, of course, naturally, then we find out there's a Goha office in the town. Naturally, it's locked because we're not ready to talk about that plotline yet, but someone is sitting there, presumably another Goha descendant or whatever the fuck. We then get introduced to the naval alien of Sky. Naturally, one of them gets out to give exposition, and that's funny, and also that's kind of clever. The idea that each alien like makes up a different part of the body overall. Just kind of a clever little detail they didn't have to do, but I like the inclusion. And then naturally, they sneak in. We get the best Yu-Gi-Oh characters ever, the Jersey Devils back. They help him out. The macho thing in the entrance to the castle, that was pretty funny. And then they sneak up where we see that Udius has been turned into a shirt somehow. And then I did like that they were discovered literally 2 minutes later. Like, these are kids. They're not spies. And so naturally, also the Jersey Devils just decided to take on that macho alien minotaur thing to protect our other two. They are the real heroes of this show. We all know it. And then just to finish things off really quickly, the Ronavin or whatever the fuck, the head of the gang, who naturally is a waifu, so expect fan art of her to hit the internet sooner or later, shows up. Her shtick is she's, I guess, like a troubadour, and the Goha girl thinks she's cool, and she's gonna do a 2-on-1 match. And again, she doesn't look like a villain or an antagonist, not to say she won't be that later, but I do think they maybe are setting up that there's maybe something a little bit darker with, like, maybe the way all this is being ran, or like we're not necessarily supposed to like who's in charge. But yeah, no, that was this episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. I actually spoke about it longer than I thought. Fuck, we got a whole nother topic to talk about. Gotta speed it along. Tell me what you thought about it below. Again, fine. It's just that, I don't know, it just really started occurring to me the other day that maybe my big gripe with this show is that I'm very interested in all the Udius stuff, but the show isn't. And that's maybe a problem. But yeah, no, so on to what is really the big trading card game subject of the day, and our TCG question of the week. What do you think about eBay buying TCGPlayer, or acquiring? We'll talk about it. Yeah, this is kind of huge. Now, in a lot of ways, from eBay's perspective, it makes sense. They put a huge emphasis on trading card stuff, albeit more with sports, although a lot of people do get a lot of their Yu-Gi-Oh! And Vanguard cards, and I'm sure Magic and Pokemon as well, off eBay. But yeah, no, so essentially, like, they kind of just did what big companies do. They went to the competition, and they just kind of bought them out. And my first instinct is that this is a bad thing. I typically am not really liking this trend of huge companies owning things, and the bizarre armies of fandoms who just kind of like accept it and are okay with it and want the Disney overlords or the Amazon overlords or whoever your bizarre corporate capitalist overlord is to just acquire and control everything, because, you know, that goes so well. So there's that concerning factor. There is also the thing that, so when you read the official statement by the CEO of TCGPlayer, and I think this is smart, and I think there is a lot of positivity taken from this, essentially eBay's just kind of like, I guess, the landlord, so to speak, but TCGPlayer will be allowed to function more or less with all the freedom and autonomy they have up until this point, just potentially with eBay as a backer, and as well as, this seems to be the big thing, a desire to expand. I don't know if that's a desire to expand into sports cards, or even having access to, like, say, eBay shipping deals, or potentially this helps with maybe, I think eBay's worldwide, maybe even international shipping. I think there is a lot of things that, if handled correctly, could go very well for TCGPlayer here. Or even if they just want backing to expand into more like side products, like do more with, say, card sleeves or playmats or deck boxes, or who knows? eBay is like one of the biggest online companies in the world. Having them as your sugar daddy definitely has its advantages. However, as cool as it sounds to hear them say, "Don't worry, man, we're staying independent. We're still going to keep everything under control." You can look the articles up on your own, and I do trust you all to make your own decision based on your beliefs. But if we're just talking about how I see things, as we're seeing when big companies acquire little niche hobby things like this, they have a tendency to want things to go their way, and by their way I mean the cheap way, or just like have their fingerprints all over everything to get the credit, i.e. what you saw, say, recently with Amazon's acquisition of Comixology and how they've just completely messed that service up. You have, say, Sony's buying of Crunchyroll, which hasn't really led to anything big yet, but now they bought Right Stuff Anime, and Sony, obviously, as we know, has, as we've seen with their movie division, done a few underhanded things to get ahead, which is a little scary. Again, you could use the movie division as an example, all the various game company buyouts, all of these things, or even just like Disney with acquiring Fox and just like eliminating a lot of Hollywood jobs that aren't coming back, or creating, say, legal issues with people who, say, wrote book adaptations of Fox properties, or any number of just really shady things. Because I've got news for you, Disney stans. Disney's not a good company. They're quite fucking shady. And yeah, it's just kind of like, that's what I then go to. Now, I actually know people who have worked for TCGPlayer and say that they're a company that usually only makes decisions when they are informed. And again, I'd like to believe all this will work out for the best. But in a world where we're seeing more and more examples of this not, it's just a little hard for me to have any positivity. You may think differently. That's fine. Will this all work out for the better? Probably. I'm probably just being a little overly paranoid. But again, now you've got to live in a world where there's just that slight little less competition to get better values. Or, I don't know. We will see as time goes by. Again, I'm sure many people will have many different opinions. Just then, if you're going to give your different opinion, that's fine. Just don't talk about how Big Daddy Musk told you how this should really go, if you know what I mean. But yeah, no, that was my thoughts on that situation. Give me your thoughts below. That was my thoughts on the episode. Well, we covered the two topics. But give me your thoughts about all that below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me next week to see a 2-on-1 match where hopefully the power of Jersey will come through again.